Welcome back, everyone. The situation in the Middle East is intensifying rapidly. Tensions are rising faster than you can imagine. A significant naval force is heading toward the region following statements from President Trump. But this is about far more than just a flotilla. We're witnessing a substantial military buildup aimed at Iran, with major military assets converging on the area. Recently, Iranian state television issued disturbing threats against President Trump, including warnings about potential assassination attempts. Now, various media outlets are reporting death tolls exceeding 5,000 people. Fresh U.S. sanctions and rumors of potential strikes are escalating the situation dramatically. This marks a new phase in the ongoing U.S.-Iran confrontation, a dangerous dance where a single misstep could reshape the entire region, potentially causing oil prices to surge and drawing proxy forces into the conflict. Stay with me through this analysis because I'll break down the threats, the military hardware streaming into the region, this massive naval force en route, potential scenarios for how this equipment might be deployed, and the new sanctions along with the heated rhetoric from both sides. This powder keg could explode at any moment. Despite all the tough talk, Iran might be regretting their aggressive stance as things escalate beyond what they anticipated, though their propaganda will always claim strength. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps would likely be among the primary targets of any operation. This elite paramilitary force serves the Ayatollah, handling missiles, proxy operations, and all covert activities, essentially functioning as the regime's enforcers. Their ground force commander, General Mahad Pakor, a hardliner operating against U.S. interests since the 1980s, recently warned on January 22, 2026, that the U.S. and Israel should withdraw or face consequences more severe than what he claims was their victory in the recent 12-day conflict. In my assessment, he's signaling potential massive drone and missile attacks on U.S. bases and Israel. But more importantly, he's hinting at something bigger, possibly closing the Strait of Hormuz. This is Iran's ultimate leverage. Shutting down that strait would halt a fifth of global oil flow overnight, creating an economic crisis no major power wants, including Iran, since they also profit from oil sales. Yet the regime has become so extreme they're essentially threatening to pull this trigger. A key reason for deploying these assets is likely to prevent such a closure and keep the Persian Gulf open for oil transit. Additionally, with casualty numbers mounting, official figures at 5,000, with rumors suggesting 10,000 to 15,000, this military presence might also deter further actions against the Iranian population. The Iranian regime has acknowledged 3,117 deaths, with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei referring to the deceased in a recent speech and calling opposition forces inhuman savages. He's blaming everything on the US and Israel rather than accepting any responsibility. Classic deflection from Iran's leadership. He's framing the unrest as foreign-backed sedition, while Iran's foreign minister claims the US has no influence over their judicial proceedings or executions. Iran even released a video mapping every US base within range of their Fateh 110 and Sejil ballistic missiles, weapons with ranges exceeding 1,000 nautical miles that can carry chemical warheads. Deploying this naval force could be a direct response to Iran identifying these potential targets, which include bases in the UAE, Iraq, and Qatar. Iran's trying to leverage these threats to prevent any regime change actions. Recent leaked footage shows IRGC troops executing wounded protesters at point-blank range and using extreme violence, clear crimes against humanity. This is Iran's standard playbook. Hybrid warfare combining cyber blackouts, proxy forces, potential Houthi drone swarms in the Red Sea targeting this naval force, and likely expanding narcotics operations under the radar to fund the regime, especially with new sanctions potentially cutting oil revenue. They're trained in saturation attacks, using decoy drones to overwhelm defenses like Israel's Iron Dome. That's probably why those F-15Es with laser-guided anti-drone rockets are being deployed to the region, as I discussed in yesterday's video. Iran is also focusing on electronic warfare, with Russian-supplied jamming equipment at unprecedented levels to defend against any strikes on the Ayatollah. President Trump posted on Truth Social on January 13th that help was coming. This arriving flotilla might be what he meant, or perhaps the administration recognized they needed more assets in place to effectively neutralize the Ayatollah's integrated air defense systems while preventing post-strike chaos. Now let's discuss this flotilla heading to the Middle East. The U.S. is deploying a strike package that would intimidate any adversary. Leading this is the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, essentially a mobile airfield with comprehensive air power for escort, defensive, and offensive operations. Currently in the South China Sea, conducting deterrence operations against China, it's just days from reaching the Arabian Sea. The carrier's air wing includes F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters with 600 nautical mile range, capable of 900 milliliters, powered by Pratt & Whitney F-135 engines, producing 43,000 pounds of thrust. These would be the spearhead for penetrating Iran's integrated air defense system. Having this flotilla in the region provides critical capabilities if action is taken against Iran. They'd face S-400 radar systems, with F-35s likely approaching at high altitude to pave the way for bombers like B-52s and B-1s, along with F-A-18s. Don't underestimate those F-A-18s on the Abraham Lincoln. The EA-18G Growlers provide electronic warfare capabilities. Picture a layered approach. F-35s first blind the air defenses protecting the Ayatollah's palace, followed by EA-18G Growlers jamming and spoofing radar sites, then strike packages of F-18s delivering precision-guided munitions. These work alongside F-15s that can eliminate drones and deliver strikes on coastal targets, potentially downing 40-60 drones each with those new laser-guided rockets from yesterday's video. E-2D Hawkeyes would provide overhead surveillance as part of the strike package. The flotilla's power comes not just from the carrier, but from the air power it projects. Consider Tomahawk cruise missiles hitting coastal defenses, IRGC headquarters, even the Ayatollah's palace gates, sending a clear message that time is running out. This could be a strategic strike pressuring the Ayatollah to flee, an operation to eliminate him directly, or strikes preparing for a special operations raid. The goal is keeping the adversary uncertain. Having the flotilla there provides force projection and multiple options, allowing flexibility to pivot strategies as needed. The Navy excels at this. They're the world's most advanced projection of air and sea power, and their adaptability gives the US numerous ways to address this challenge. The UK has also committed to supporting deterrence efforts, a significant development. This could indicate intelligence suggesting either imminent US action or an expected Iranian reprisal strike. They're sending Eurofighter Typhoons to Qatar under a defense pact. These twin-engine fighters can reach 1,500 mph and are excellent for rapid response missions. They're there to reinforce deterrence and signal to Iranian leadership that this isn't just a US operation. The UK is involved too. When multiple nations deploy air power, it's a strong indicator that something significant may happen soon. But everything depends on the weapons these platforms carry. The AGM-158 JASSM deployed on F-35Cs provides standoff capability, allowing F-35s to launch from 500 nautical miles off Iran's coast. These stealthy missiles can strike multiple strategic targets and are extremely difficult to defend against, even with the advanced Russian surface-to-air missiles protecting the Ayatollah's palace. Don't overlook Virginia-class submarines potentially launching Tomahawk missiles. They need specific depth positioning to launch, but they'd complement any strike package excellently, preparing the battlefield by eliminating radar sites. They can loiter in the airspace awaiting further tasking via Link 16, the communication network connecting all warfare assets in the region. With this flotilla deployed, all intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platforms can communicate with the carrier and share information with fighters and submarines. Link 16 is that overarching network enabling constant communication, like F-35's messaging F-18s in real time. Let's discuss what I call 4D chess. We're seeing escalation build daily, particularly with oil tanker sanctions. This is high-stakes diplomacy cornering the Iranian regime. Yesterday, January 23rd, 9 Iranian oil tankers, Iran's shadow fleet, were sanctioned for evading export bans. This economic pressure is choking the regime's funding streams, and they're feeling it as their banks enter emergency status. We saw similar patterns before the Venezuela operation, with Maduro's inner circle transferring hundreds of millions to Miami and Turkish banks. We're seeing parallels in Iran, with the inner circle likely anticipating potential action. The goal is starving the IRGC of funding. If the Ayatollah can't pay the shadow forces meant to protect them constantly, loyalty will weaken. When the inner circle fractures, that could trigger the regime's collapse. Then there's Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince who hijacked Iranian networks to show the people there's a better alternative to the Ayatollah. Is everything aligning to bring Pahlavi back to lead? That remains uncertain, but he could serve as a transitional figure, establishing a democratic process in Iran. Let me outline a hypothetical scenario with this massive flotilla arriving. First, deterrence is now in play. Could this flotilla conduct quick strikes against IRGC headquarters, responsible for likely daily protester executions? That's one option, best executed with Tomahawk missiles from destroyers hitting IRGC compounds. But once that happens, Iran would likely launch drone swarms toward Israel. At that point, you'd want Typhoons and F-15Es airborne. I wouldn't be surprised if Typhoons are also equipped with anti-drone rockets. So you could have 8 flights of F-15s, 4 flights of Typhoons, and F-35Cs engaging these drones. That's the primary challenge. You'd also need to protect the flotilla itself, because Iran might follow through on threats and launch anti-ship weapons. You'd need capability to intercept larger threats with SM-2 missiles from destroyers defending against anti-ship weapons targeting naval assets. What are your thoughts? With this surge of military hardware and the flotilla entering the region, what do you expect over the coming days and weeks? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.